You know, if you have an audience that you can drive traffic to the product, you can, but when you're just starting out, you can't. So once I realized that wasn't working, I started going on YouTube, you know, and was like, well, what can I do, sort of thing. And basically tried drop shipping, tried Facebook ads, tried copywriting, tried email marketing. Like, you name a business model, right? You name it. I likely tried it, or at the very, very least, considered trying it. I think there's an important thing to realize is that whether you're trying any business model or you're trying to sell a course or whatever, your first one, or like if you're trying to sell a service, either your first go at a particular type of service, or your first month or two of outreaching to someone on that service, or if you're selling a course, your first one is likely going to be shit. I don't think you'll ever have that level of motivation when you had no money, when you had no clients. It's incredibly easy, and it doesn't matter what level of success you have. I don't think it matters whether like you're Alex or Mosey, or you're somebody else who's just hit 5k a month, 10k a month, 20k a month, whatever you've hit.
Let's kick off. I want to start with a quote from yourself, which I quite enjoy your writing. So your business is a reflection of you. If you want your business to succeed, you need to improve yourself and relevant areas. Why is that important to you?
It's important to me because it's something I realized that was holding me back, because I realized I was the bottleneck in my business. So for example, if you're not getting sales in your business, whether you're selling products, selling services, whatever you're selling, it's likely, I say it's likely, it's because you're lacking in either your ability to create offers, your ability to market, your ability to sell. Like, there's a fundamental skill that you're lacking. So if you can improve yourself and build that skill, you know, you're going to be able to fix that problem. So for example, like if you have a sales page and it converts at like 0.1% on warm traffic, which is really a low conversion rate, you improve your copywriting, or you improve your offer, or you improve both by building like the copywriting skill, and you increase that conversion rate to 2%, 3%, you know, and then it's a much better result. So any
Instead of
problem you have.
blaming outside factors.
Yes,
I want to dig
exactly.
into the self-mastery side. So why do you pursue self-mastery?
I think it's the answer to all your problems. It's also, in my eyes, the only way to reach your true potential. Like, because my greatest fear has always been lying on my deathbed and like looking back and being like, I could have been fucking great, but
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm lying here. You know that there's like, you see who you could have been and you're not that person. I always have that fear. I don't know if it'll happen. It might not happen, but I always have that fear. So I want to reach my potential. I want to build something great. And in my eyes, self mastery is the only way you can do that, because self mastery is three things in the way I see it. So it's mastery of your mind. So you remove limiting beliefs that are holding you back. You build empowering beliefs that push you forward. Mastery of your actions. So you get shit done when it needs done, regardless of how you feel. You just get the work done. A mastery of your craft, which is basically, I see your craft, what you choose to do, as an extension of yourself, because I believe it reflects what you value and what you're interested in. So you need to master your craft so that you can do what you do at an exceptional standard and get the results that you want, that you feel like you deserve through earning them. So when you master all three of them areas, I think it's impossible not to at least catch a glimpse of your potential, because you've removed the mindsets that are holding you back. Now you have things pushing you forward. So your mind's no longer holding you back. You can do what you need to do. You're no longer productively procrastinating. You're no longer wasting time. You're focusing on the lever moving tasks, and then you're mastering your craft, because you can do whatever it is, whatever skill you're choosing to do, whatever you're choosing to build, you can do that at an exceptional level.
What brought you to that realization?
Oh man, I don't actually know. I don't think there wasn't a big turning point.
Yeah.
I Everything for me, everything I've ever done, achieved, realized, has always been like a culmination of small events. I've not had any big world changing revelations where this thing happened and I woke up and it was this. It's more just, it initially started a mastery of your craft. That's what I get into, mastering your craft, whatever you choose to do. So for me, my craft is basically writing or content creation. So I was like, I need to master that. I need to master that. That's the foundation of everything I do, pretty much. So I got a book. It should be back there somewhere. Mastery by Robert Greene, and
Sick.
fantastic book. Highly recommended. And I get into mastering your craft, but then I realized, like you you can master other areas. And if you combine them, you're sort of going to, because mastering your craft is like one avenue. And if you master your craft, you're going to unlock a bit of your potential. But there's other things which are holding you back. And I've basically reduced them down to craft, obviously, actions, and your mind.
Mm. I think as well the fact that you said there about multiple different areas is interesting because you're obviously a healthy dude, similar to myself. Like you're into fitness, into all that side of things. Because you do those things, gives you confidence that you can do other shit. So that was the biggest thing that kind of like held me back was the fact that, I had this background in like finance and tech, and then was in this career whereby like I was capped. So I was making like 100K a year, right? And that was it. So I'd fucking work 80 hours a week, 60 hours a week, 100 hours a week. I'm making 100K a year. That dug at me really deeply because I couldn't change that factor. The only way to change it was by to go off and do something else. Whereas in all other aspects of life, writing, podcasting, fitness, training, I can exponentially get better and then obviously have incremental improvements. So I've reached that kind of ceiling for myself. But it looks like for you, you have had a blank canvas in many regards because you fucked with loads of shit on the internet, but you're able to build from scratch, which is like super unique to be in, especially for the age you are.
Yeah. Like I initially started building online just because if we take it back a few years when I was in high school, so between the age of like 12 to probably 16, I always wanted to create content on the internet. Like
Mhm.
no, like when you're
Same.
12, yeah, when you're 12 you have no interest in making money, right? You
Yeah.
don't, money's not a thing to you, right? So I was literally just, I was obsessed with creating content. I had like 10 different YouTube channels because every time like my schoolmates would find out about one, take the piss out of me, I would delete it
Mhm.
and just create another one. And I did that for like 4 or 5 years, got to 16, had exams and all, so I stopped all of that there. And then during COVID, I just happened to stumble across, there's this guy actually on Twitter. His name was Chris Johnson, and he was posting all these screenshots of like affiliate sales he was making from people selling his products. I was like, holy crap, affiliate marketing, this is what I need to do. So I started a new Twitter account, got on Money Twitter, which is like what that corner of Twitter is called. Tried
Mhm.
affiliate marketing, realized, okay, you can't make any money doing affiliate marketing, especially if you have no audience. If you have an audience that you can drive traffic to the product, you
Yeah.
can, but when you're just starting out, you can't. So once I realized that wasn't working, I started going on YouTube, and was like, well, what can I do, sort of thing. And
Mhm.
I basically tried drop shipping, tried Facebook ads, tried copywriting, tried email marketing. I like, you name a business model, right? You name it. I likely tried it, or at the very, very least, considered trying it. And I did
Yeah.
that for like probably 18 months. But throughout that whole 18 months, I was building my audience on Twitter. So I was,
Mm.
so I was just building, and I'd never even thought of monetizing it. Like it didn't even cross my mind. I was like, I'm building a business, whatever that business is, or a business model I'm trying, and I'm building this audience. And then one day I just was like, holy crap, I have this audience here. Why am I not trying to monetize it? And then
You have the
so yeah,
asset.
like yeah. So I had like that blank slate that, I'd built up quite a bit of goodwill with my audience from not trying to sell them something for like 2 years, basically 18 months.
Mhm.
And yes, then I went down that there path, monetized my audience, built a few courses. Some of them flopped. Like I think there's an important thing to realize is that whether you're trying any business model or you're trying to sell a course or whatever, your first one, or like if you're trying to sell a service, either your first go at a particular type of service, or your first month of two of outreaching to someone on that service, or if you're selling a course, your first one is likely going to be shit. It's likely not
Mhm.
going to work because, why would it work? You haven't put in the reps, you haven't built the
Mhm.
competency and skill in that area. So the first couple of them sort of failed, and then eventually I stumbled onto some stuff that worked.
Man, you didn't stumble, you stuck with it, and that's the difference, right? Because that's when everyone gives up. 60 days, 90 days. I saw Sahel Bloom recently, last year he mentioned something about like 30 for 30, 30 minutes a day for 30 days. And it's how
Yeah.
basically like I actually develop like any sort of like really difficult habit because of the fact that most people crack and give up. Or it's like when they get the shot of dopamine and then they get the instant drawback, something like went negatively, you didn't get the call, you didn't get the meeting, you didn't get the client, you didn't sell your first course. That's when everyone gives up and goes back to other stuff. But you've had that thread of just relentless discipline, right? and that's just evident across like a lot of aspects of your life. So that feeds into your mindset element. So like, how have you built up that character trait that so many people fail to put together?
It's a weird one. I do believe a lot of it goes back to the gym. So I started working out when I was,
Everything goes back to the gym.
yeah, mate, it
Everything.
really does. It does.
It does, man.
I tweet about it all the time, but like I think the gym is the gateway, or at least the major gateway to like the self improvement, self mastery worlds. I just like it. Once you start there, you realize, because when you start working out, you realize the importance of hard work, delayed gratification, discipline, consistency, all of these so like traits that are so fundamental to success in any area of your life, business, relationships, mental strength, anything, right? Anything, them traits are fundamental. So when I started working out at 16, I started competing in Olympic weightlifting, which is like a really tiny niche sport where you do a snatch and a clean and jerk. They're the two lifts you do. And I started competing. I was relatively good at it. I won a British weightlifting championship, won a few Northern Irish championships, held a few records. So I was decent. And because I was decent, I was like really committed to it. Right. So it sort of fed into it. Because I was decent, I was committed, but I was decent because I was committed. And so I never missed training. I never skipped meals. Like the amount of parties, birthdays, things I missed because, I had a competition in 2 weeks and I was thinking about, I was cutting weight and I had to get my sleep, I had to get my nutrition, had to get my training sessions in. So for like 5 years, I just worked out and never skipped a session, never nothing. So I think that level of discipline initially started in the gym, but I feel like there was also a few mindset shifts, realizations I had, but I could never really externalize them or put them into words until I think it was Alex Hermosi said this, and I heard him say it maybe like a year ago, and it clicked to me, and like that's what it is. That's why I have been able to, no matter if I fucked up, if I failed, just keep going. Is that this is what hard feels like. See, when he said that
100%.
in a video, I was like,
Fucking 100%.
this is what hard feels like. And that is, I feel like that is why so many people quit, because, it gets
Yeah.
hard. And, if you ask anybody, they want to achieve a goal, they want to get a six pack, they want to build a business, whatever it is. If you ask them, is it going to be hard? They'll all say yes. But as soon as it gets hard, they fucking quit.
Yeah.
And I think that's because they don't understand that hard means hard. This is what hard feels like. And it's like you said, most people are going to quit when it gets hard. So if you can just push through, if you can just push through and keep going when it's hard, you're going to separate yourself from the pack massively. I think a lot of that comes down to, there's a mentality I've had, is just do one more. So like when you feel
Mm.
like quitting, right? So we bring it back real simple. I'm a big fan of reading. If you're reading a book and you feel like quitting, like stopping reading, I don't want to read anymore, just read one more page. Like that is super small, right? You're reading a book. You want to read one more, like you don't want to read a book, stop reading. No, just read one more. And when you take that like small habit of like when you're doing it, when you're reading, to you build it up to, you're trying this business, you're trying to build your brand, you're trying to do whatever, you seem to be getting no results. Just go one more day. Just do one more day. See what happens tomorrow. And just repeat that over time with them two mindsets, I think is, so this is what hard feels like, and just do one more every single day. And I
That's
think if you have them, you'll be fine.
It's fucking sick, man, because what you learn there as well from physical sport is the fact that, let's say, in your cutting weight example, when you're losing body fat or losing weight, you need to keep going. So if it's 25 minutes you're on a bike and you're at 23 minutes, you're hot and sweaty and you feel like shit, you need to get to 25. So then when you're doing your cold outreach, when you promise yourself you're going to do 10 messages a day that are hyper personalized, which is what I do, I don't do automated emails at all. At 8, you're like, fuck this. I want to go downstairs and eat. I want to take a break on this. But I actually remember those thoughts when I'm doing it. Because I'm like, I've done this in the past, especially when I was competing when I was quite young. It was like horrific. And now, funny you say that. So when I was dieting when I was quite young, I used to hate it. I used to, 10 months of the year I'd be thinking about it, and then 2 months of the year I'd hate it. Now I'm doing 20 weeks of dieting, and every day is perfect. I have same meals, Perfect. Just wake up 5:30,
Yeah.
just start chipping away at it. And yeah, it's 7:30 now, but then we finish at 9. I'm a bit hungry. I'll go to bed and get back up and do it. So what I'm trying to say is that that activity gets easier and easier and easier
Yeah.
and easier. And it's just, and another aspect of that too, which I thought was quite interesting, is the fact that, so when I look at your business and I look at your brand and I look at your content, it's so polished, right? But I think what you've learned is the fact that it's not just about going to the gym and just going to the gym. When you go into the vortex of, like, let's say fitness, there's performance in the gym, there's nutrition, there's recovery, there's also all the other like the small nuances, which is like reviewing your numbers, making sure your weight is going in the right direction, making sure all these small little things, so they all feed into each other. But unless you do the first thing, you're not going to be obviously enticed to fucking measure your body weight, right, every single day. But it's like you realize how much spokes there are of the wheel eventually.
Yeah.
And in the same in a business sense, right? I have to make sales, otherwise I don't make money. But at the same time, I need to fulfill clients. And at the same time, I need to get the right reviews. And then I need to put it back to the content. I need to write about it. And then I need to convey the story. So you realize how deep you need to go to actually
Yeah.
achieve mastery by
Yeah.
picking something and just going fucking 100% at it.
Yeah, but like there's two lines of thoughts here. I think once you realize like how many spokes are on the wheel, right? Once you realize that, you sort of think, right, if I can do this one bit, that's a rep. Okay, you manage one spoke of the wheel. You do a rep. With that rep, you build competency. Then you build confidence, right? And you're able to say, right, like you said, it carries over. It's like, okay, if I can dial in my training, because loads of people can do that. Loads of people can go to the gym, follow a program, but then their nutrition is shit.
Mhm.
So you can use, I like to view it as like momentum, especially if it's in a wheel, right? You can look at it as a wheel. First one's training. Okay, use the momentum of completing your training to perfectly do your nutrition. Okay, now you've nailed your nutrition. Let's nail your recovery. So you can do all your ice baths, your saunas, that sort of stuff. So it's like, also, one thing I think that is really helpful there is trying to link the pain, the suffering, the challenge to not the pain, the suffering, or the challenge, but to the result that it creates. So, like when you're in the gym, most people go and they train, right? And most people relatively enjoy training. But when you're doing a fucking bicep curl and your biceps on fire, you're not sitting thinking, my biceps really sore. You're really thinking, okay, this is getting me the result because it's tearing down my muscle fibers and they're going to come back bigger. So you are linking the pain, the suffering, the challenge to the result. I think if you can carry that over to anything else, so like if you're doing cold outreach, and when you're in your eighth cold email and you have two more to do, and you're like, fuck this, instead of thinking, oh fuck, I have to do another outreach, think this could be the one that gets me the client. You can use that there.
100%, man. And I think that's great because you look at the feedback from that then. So, of course, you have a lot of shit feedback initially where it's all negative, negative, negative. And then you'll start breaking through. It's that compound effect where it's just like exponential, right? So
Yeah,
it took me 2 years to get 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. It took me 1 month to get 30,000.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
right,
The
this is what
compounding.
happens. This is what happens in the end, right? I want to go through some of the aspects of like how you have this individual thinking, right? So, I would say that I would think quite independently because of the influences that I've had through my podcast. But I'm also a victim of the world. So as a result, I'm obviously taking the external influence of other people because that's how the world works.
Mhm.
You think very independently. How did you come to that, I guess, fucking endpoint?
I've always been very independent. I've always like, if you picked me up right now and you threw me on a fucking deserted island, as long as I have my laptop and an internet connection, I'm going to be fine, mate. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to work. I'm going to find a fucking log or a branch to do pull-ups on. I'm going to be fine. I have always been very, very independent my whole life. Well, I think it's because so I'm 22. For the first 10 or 11 years of my life, I was an only child. And then I had a
Okay.
younger brother born. So because my younger brother was born at that age, so the first half of my life, only child, very used to just, parents being at work, me at home, going to school, coming home till they come home at 6 o'clock or whatever, and then doing whatever a child does. Then when my brother was born, because I was at that 10 or 11 age where you can start to look after yourself. You can't cook food for yourself, but you can, you can be left alone in a room and you're not going to destroy the place.
Mhm.
So I feel like then all the focus went to my brother. So I've always just been very good at being left alone and just, then curating obviously what I'm watching, what I'm interested in. And if we want to go deeper into that, I think as I got older, because I got into the gym, I start consuming gym content, so the likes of Rob Lipsett, Mike First, and all the OGs, like Kristen Guzman, all the OGs from back in like 2016, 17 or whatever. Start
Mhm.
consuming their sort of content. And then I feel like that it's again the gym being the gateway to all this. You end up going into other areas of how to improve yourself. And then you
Mhm.
end up going down, you end up curating what you're consuming, and then I suppose when you are, I'm quite like self-reflective, quite like introspective. So when I'm consuming all that, when I'm trying to chase my goals, I can then sit down and just realize, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it.
Yeah,
It's
of
very,
course.
but I've always been independent, always.
That's quite interesting because, as you mentioned before on Messenger, we're going back and forth. A big thing that I get from people on my podcast is the fact that they're always like, "How did you go do this? Like, how did you go build this? Or how do you live like here? And how did you travel there? And how did you do that?" Especially in Ireland. Now, I do not think this is Ireland specific. I think it's location specific. Insert any country,
Yeah,
and it can be quite small minded to some degree. There's an element of the natural path, the traditional path, and then trying to like leave that. So,
yeah.
were you ever drawn towards that aspect? And then, how would you advise someone to kind of leave that pattern because they're clearly unhappy? Like there's an
Yeah.
element of dissatisfaction. So, how do you walk away from that?
Yeah, well, like I was always like, there's the thing about me too. I was always good at school. I was not one of these entrepreneurs who, seems quite common in the entrepreneur space, where like bad grades at exams or don't go to school or whatever. I was always like grade A student, really good at school, able to just sit down and like study hours upon hours. So the traditional path was, it always sort of was in my head, but at the same time, like, so the way I would actually phrase it is, it was a path that I was on, but it wasn't the path I wanted to be on. And I just needed to find the path that I wanted to be on, which internally I sort of knew the whole time was going to be something to do with content creation, because like I said, from the age of 12 to 16, I was just content. Let's make content. And that was before, being a YouTuber was cool. Like I got the piss taken out of me at school for being the YouTube kid, like making YouTube videos and all.
Don't worry,
I
man. I
remember,
was in the I was in the Call of Duty, man. I was Modern Warfare 2
yeah,
boy.
yeah, class. Like I remember walking into a classroom of the year above me, and everybody, I walked in and everybody started shouting out my YouTube tag of the year above me, taking the piss. And I was
Mm,
like, oh crap. But so I always knew it was something to do with content creation. So I think if you're trying to get out of that path, I think you need to first off understand and internalize the spotlight effect, which I'm sure you've heard of. It's basically,
mhm,
spotlight effect is, right, you think everybody's looking at you, you think everybody's thinking about you. Are you thinking about anybody else? No, you're just thinking about them thinking about you. That is the same with everybody. Everybody is in their own bubble. Everybody is in their own spotlight. Nobody is caring or thinking about anybody else. And if they do, it's never for more than 2 minutes when you're doing something specific. And then they're like, oh, look, he did that. And then they forget about it. Like nobody really cares. So
mhm,
once you understand that, I think then the second thing is finding clarity. You need to really figure out what you want, because obviously you're on this path. You don't want to be on that path. You know that. But what path do you want to be on? Okay. So I think
mhm,
I actually go into talk about quite a lot two processes I've created called life tapping and conscious alignment. So life tapping is pretty much where you be introspective. You sit down, you think, okay, what do I want my dream life to look like? I call it utopia. So what do you want your utopia to look like? What how do you want to spend your day? What do you want to be doing with your life? So what career do you want to have? What business do you want to have? Do you train? What are your habits? What are your mindsets? Everything about your dream life be meticulously detailed. And people don't want to do this. They don't want to sit down with a fucking journal and write about this, but it is incredibly important to find clarity, because To find the path that you want to be on, you need to understand what you want to do and what you want from your life. Because if you want to be able to work in Bali for the rest of your life, you can't fucking do that if you're sitting working in Goldman Sachs. You can't do that. So you need to find the path, that fits what you want. So you need to figure out what you want. I also like talking about creating your nether, which is the opposite. What do you not want? What is like the
Mm.
worst version of your life? What is the worst version? Once you've decided on them two things, that is your life tapping process. You then need to consciously align your life. This is pretty much where every decision you make, every action you take, you ask yourself if it aligns with that utopia, that dream life of yours. Okay. So, like, if you're deciding to go to university to do this, if you're deciding to take this new job, ask yourself, is that going to help me get to my utopia, to my dream life? If it doesn't, don't fucking do it because it's a waste of your time. Now, there can be certain nuances there where you're at a certain point, where it's like you have no choice, you have to take the job.
Of
That's
course,
fine.
of course.
Understand that there, but largely you need to keep this in mind. I think if you want to get on the path.
And that's where it becomes difficult because let's say they're the like the utopia element. So there's the heaven. I call it the heaven and hell analogy. I think it came from Jordan Peterson. I don't really know. So heaven is like how it all works out. And I think you come from like an ordinary family, so do myself, and that's where it's very good for someone like us because when you're not VC fucking backed from Bank of Dad, right? You
Yeah.
really want to get to heaven. But if you are, okay, then you're not. You're like, oh fuck it, who cares? I'm already rich, right?
Yeah.
But you really want to push that heaven. The hell is what you can potentially end up in being. And that's what likes to spark under your ass, like what really likes to spark
Yeah.
in your ass. However, where most people live is in purgatory in the middle. And that's where to some degree I was, right? Because I was like, how do I do the internet thing? Like as in like I have a podcast, I have an audience, whatever, whatever. But I was like, what do I actually do? Right. And I had that inflection point because it's like, okay, do I go off and build this stuff? And at the same time as doing that, I won't say who it was from, but I got an offer from a company in Dubai for 250,000 a year. Okay. And my girlfriend at the time, like, who was very supportive, she was like, yeah, like, you should take it. Like, it's fucking great money, Like, you're going to be like doing something great, whatever. And I was like, nah. The reason why is because I will be 60, 80 hours in downtown Dubai in a fucking office at 45 degrees in the summer. I'll
Yeah.
have no podcast. I'll have nothing online. I won't have time to write content. I'll be like head of some trading platform and I'll literally be working on the weekends. And yeah, I'll be making decent money, whatever. But I'm trying to say that even that's one variable was the money, but all the other stuff would have been swallowed,
Yeah.
like genuinely swallowed up at that point and completely gone. And that was a tough realization. And it was like close enough to like 250,000, probably like 200K or some shit like that a year. Um, and Yusuf Smith by any chance, Propane Fitness.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll fucking love this, right? So I always reference this. He was on my podcast, and he was a investment banker, doctor,
Mhm.
and then went on to become a online coach, whatever. He said that when he was in investment banking in BlackRock, he said, look at your manager, look at your manager's manager, and check are they fundamentally happy because you're going to be your manager in four
Yeah.
years and your manager's manager in 10 years, and if they don't have
Yeah.
the life that you have. Then why the fuck you doing it? Because you can make money anywhere. And also, do you even want the money, right? If you're making 500,000 a year, but your parents hate you, your family hates you, your kid hates you, you're divorced, you don't see your kids anymore, you've lost custody. And what the fuck is the point?
Yeah.
Right? What the fuck is
Completely.
the point? So, and that's what happens to these investment bankers. Right? This is
Yeah.
exactly what happens then.
Yeah, man. And look, it's scary, taking that leap, whether like for you not declining that job offer, going all in the podcast and all, like it's fucking scary. But I always the book War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, I don't know if you've read it, but it's a fantastic book that I highly recommend. He talks quite a bit about this thing called resistance, and it's a thing, really. It's a feeling inside you, but it's a thing. It's like he talks about it as like an entity almost. There's a thing of resistance. So he uses the example of when you're sitting down. He's a writer, so he's an author. So he sits down to write and he faces resistance. He doesn't want to write. He has writer's block, all the rest. I do think that resistance goes from the micro tasks of actually sitting down to write, sitting down to record, doing whatever, but also to the bigger tasks where you're taking that risk, where you're making that big decision to turn down the job offer, to go all in on whatever. But resistance in the way Stephen Pressfield talks about it, and the way I also like to think about it, is it's a sign that that thing that you're feeling resistance towards is important, that it's
Mm.
valuable. So whenever you feel resistance against something, whenever you're on the edge, whenever you're sort of doubting, I feel like that's when you need to go all in, when you need to take the leap, when you need to light that fire and just fucking jump.
Yeah, 100%. I think you, the fact that you can write means that like you can get better, and the fact that you can get better means the fact you can do fucking great things with it. And that's
Yeah.
the like my first three clients from my agency were $0,
Yeah.
and I was just getting good feedback, and then was able to scale from that over time. I want to go down the aspect of like your own personal desires. So you mentioned there about like lifestyle design and how you want all of this to work out. Like, what are some of those principles that you're trying to I guess achieve in terms of what you want to do online with your content and your business?
So online wise, I really want to have it sounds sort of superficial, but the reason I've set this goal is because so I want to have an audience in the next 5 years of 10 million people. The
Sick.
reason, right? The reason I have now that sounds super superficial because it's 10 million or 10 million people, just it's just a follower number. But I do believe if you have 10 million followers across platforms, the impact and change you can make in the world is insane. And I
Mhm.
think that's sort of when, like, don't get me wrong, 1 million followers, fucking massive, massive audience. But I feel like once you reach that 10 million is when you're truly like making an impact and making change in the world, or at
Mhm.
least if you're using it right. So that's online, but realistically, I want to take it offline, like in that I want to like start like a gym and co-working space and all. So I do.
Sick.
Yeah, like even I don't really know if I want like necessarily like a franchise one or something, but I want like a base, wherever I decide to set up, whether it's stay here in Northern Ireland or whether it's in England or Dubai or America or somewhere, wherever I end up setting up, I want to have like a gym and co-working space, and ideally, like I say, ideally, how it works out, ideally it would be like a free gym, the way like Mark Bell has a free gym, you just turn up. But yeah,
Mhm.
but there's obviously loads of logistics behind that. But either way, I want to have like a gym and a co-working space because I've always wanted something physical, like because I love building online. I absolutely love building my brand, but I've always wanted like something physical. I want to have
Yeah.
something physical that like I could walk out in the street and see somebody, like let's say it's clothing, see somebody wearing that, because like I don't know, do you know George Heaton from Represent Clothing?
Yeah, yeah, of course, of
Yeah,
course.
so I've seen I see people all the time wearing Represent stuff. I think that's so cool. I think like, and George shares it on his story all the time, people wearing Represent, or if he sees somebody wearing Represent, or I think it is so cool having something physical. Like it doesn't have to be clothing, but anything physical I think is just, it's cool. That's what I want to do.
100%. I want to build a podcast studio,
Love
and
that.
I know I'm probably not going to make any cash out of it, but I want to build like a, like the famous Tate interviews, the ones he did in like Dubai and stuff.
Yeah.
That style studio, like I've recorded in that studio before and stuff like that.
Nice.
And I like, so I record for quite frequently in person, and every time I'm there, I'm always just like looking and learning and seeing and like
Yeah.
everything. And I have no background in cinematics or production, man. I'm fucking clue about that shit. And I don't even give a shit if I make money from it or not, because
Yeah.
that's not like the core like offer. But it's just about having that physical presence. And like, I don't even know how much it would cost, man. I don't think it costs that much, to be honest. But I think that's like tangible, because
Yeah.
my partner owns like a clothing brand, something similar, like an e-com store. And when I see the product, I'm like, "Fuck, this is sick." Even though I do loads
Yeah.
of stuff online, that's like interesting, but it's just like something about in real life. It's just like
Yeah.
it takes it next level.
Yeah. There's something tangible, which is it's nice. And this is the thing, I think whenever I get questions all the time, DMs, comments, emails about like someone's lost, they don't know what to do. They have like completely no direction. And I always say to set free goals. I always like, I'm a big fan of having only free goals, no more than free goals. You can have less, but I like these free goals. I like having a physical goal. So lose X amount of fat, gain X amount of muscle, hit a PB on squat or something, whatever that physical goal is. A financial goal, so earn X amount, invest X amount, save X amount, whatever it is. and a purpose related goal. So something related to what you're building. So for you, it could be hit X number of downloads per month on the podcast or whatever it is. But purpose related goals is related to something you're building and sort of the impact you want to have. When you have those three goals, I like to call them lever moving goals. You have lever moving tasks which move the business forward. Those goals, I believe, if you focus on them goals, because of the areas they're in, it ripples into every other area of your life. So I feel like if you hit a financial goal, a physical goal, and a purpose related goal, you're likely going to improve your relationships. You're going to improve whatever else. I feel like they're lever moving. Also, the reason I like to tell the people that is I think the biggest bottleneck for most people is money. And once you don't have to get to crazy money. Like literally,
Yeah,
depending on where you live, you can get to 5K a month, 10K a month. But once you hit, realistically, if you're in 10K a month anywhere in the world, once you hit that, you don't really have to worry about money anymore as long as you're sensible. So once you hit money and have enough money, I feel like that's when you start getting into the more tangible things. Like you and me, we're both sitting here like, okay, we've built something fucking great online and we're going to continue building that, but we want something else. We want to have a bigger impact. And as much as like you can make a massive impact online due to the leverage you create for your audience, I feel like there's the impact from having something physical, at least personally, is massive.
100%. I thought what's really interesting about what you said there was the fact that, you need to sort out the financials first because you
Yeah.
can't do other stuff, right? Charles
Yep.
Miller? Charles
Yep.
Miller,
Yep.
he's on my podcast and he's a very nice guy. It was one of his first, it was one of his only ever podcasts he recorded.
Yeah, he
And
doesn't
he
do
says,
much.
he doesn't do anything, man. And he said
Yeah.
something fucking great. He was like, he was like, it's very easy to talk about like abundance when you have it. But if you don't have it, you're obviously going to be in scarcity. So he was like,
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh, think abundantly. Don't worry about the client. Don't worry about the prospect. You get another prospect. You get another client. It's like, no, if you don't have money coming in, you are going to be in scarcity, which is really bad, but you can fucking use it to your advantage. Back
Yeah.
against the wall is where you get your most results because you're going to be hungry. You're going to be up early after outreach. You're going to be might make a few discounts on some offers, whatever. Just get in cash flow, and then when you get cash flow, and then that's when you can start kind of
Yeah.
not necessarily relaxing, but I guess focusing on more like other aspects to get them right.
Yeah.
Similarly, when people like fuck up their health, you need to focus on your health, right? You need to get it fucking right. And I actually had something related to like a family member recently where someone was sick, and I was like, isn't this the catalyst to start getting really healthy? Isn't this when you do it, And like I gave up alcohol over a year ago. And
Nice.
the
Same.
reason why is because I wanted to just go like, oh, I wanted to go all in on this. I wanted to make like, is this going to work? How can I make it work? This is going to be
Yeah.
something I'm going to do. So I had to give up all that kind of stuff, which is making it work. And all the other health aspects came from it. But I just think that like when you have something going wrong, financial health, relationships,
Yeah.
you need to go like fucking fix it and just go all in on it. And then when people say then, okay, how'd you fix it? It's like you will only be able to fix it when you're actually fully in it. And then you'll see, okay, this is
Yeah.
the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. Maybe my pricing's wrong, maybe my offer's wrong, maybe my alignment's wrong. And then you'll start getting into new thresholds. And even where we're at now with the business, we have a whole heap of fucking problems, but they're definitely
Yeah.
not the problems we had at $0 a month.
Yeah, and I think it's going to sound a bit weird, but seeing you're looking back at them like early days when you were just sort of starting off, it's like you will never. I don't think you'll ever have that level of motivation ever again
Mhm.
when you had no money, when you had no clients. Like it's incredibly easy, and it doesn't matter what level of success you have. I don't think it matters whether like you're Alex or Mosey or you're somebody else who's just hit 5K a month, 10K a month, 20K a month, whatever you've hit. Once you start having a bit of success, it's so easy to get complacent. Like it is so easy just to be like, okay, and just hold it there, just maintain. But the problem is obviously when the whole world is moving forward and you're just staying still, you're actually regressing. So it's never good, but it's super easy. So like when you're in that early stage and you have that fire and you have that motivation, I don't think you'll never get that level of motivation ever again.
100%.
When your back is against the fucking wall and you have no fucking choice but to do the work, get the results. No choice.
I feel like you've probably read Purple Cow by Seth Godin.
I actually haven't,
Mhm.
but it is on my list of 250 books.
Listen to it. Listen to the audiobook. It's really good, right?
Good,
But
yeah.
and I'm listening only listening at the moment. It was Dakota
Oh,
mentioned it
yeah,
one of his reels, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'll listen to it." And he said something so fucking interesting. He was like, basically like things are always moving forward. Like the only way you're actually going to get better is or make an impact is by constantly like innovating, changing, adjusting, completely adjusting. And then people don't adjust because they look at the big players like the Colgate, the Nike, the Reebok, and they're like, "Oh,
yeah,
look, well, they don't change their core offering, so I won't." And that's when you actually start moving backwards. So like to be like remarkable, which is what the whole thing he talks about is being remarkable, and it's like
yeah,
really standing out. So it's not about being better; it's about like standing out. So people's marketing won't stand out. They have something that's working, like a viral tweet, and they just leave it at that, or they get their first client. But
yeah,
it's like at that point when you start like bolting things on and adding more to your offer and making it better and making it more engaging. And yeah, I thought it's a great book. It's kind of like it's a little bit kind of like, I guess, more on like a different aspect of business, less kind of like an Alex Hormozy style, like less kind of
yeah,
like relatable, I would say. It's in that aspect because I don't think Seth Godin is exactly relatable to people, right? But
yeah,
he just has a lot of wisdom to share
yeah.
because
It's
he's done
more
it.
intangible.
Yeah, it's because he's like seen it for like fucking
Yeah,
God knows how many years. So therefore he's able to exchange that, which is incredibly important. Which brings me on to the point about branding. So I see the blue light. I like to touch and feel throughout your content. What is branding to you?
I think it's what people think of when they think of you or your brand. So like my brand is, as much as I can try curate it realistically, it is what people think of when they think of Ross Harkness. That is my brand. And I got this from Christo. You know Christo?
He's coming
Yeah.
to my podcast in a few weeks.
Oh, amazing, man. Well done. He'll be a great guest. So Christo, there was a YouTube video he had, and he was interviewing this guy and was like, "What is branding?" Because branding, it's really like intangible, right?
That's what I
But
mean. Yeah, that's why I
it
asked
is.
you.
So it is just the thought that somebody has when they think of you or your brand. But the benefit there is that you can curate that. Okay, so what content do you put out? What's your setup like? What's your profile picture like? What's your Twitter header like? Everything you put out, right? Even on Twitter, everything you retweet, right? That adds to someone's perception of you and therefore influences your brand. So I think you have to really, really be careful and really, really do everything with purpose when it comes to your brand, whether it's content and even in content, when it comes to the wording, your tone, your authenticity, everything has to be specifically curated for how you want people to perceive your brand because everything they see, right? If you have a shit profile picture, if you have like a selfie in a black room and you can barely see your face, you can see your nose from the phone from the light on your phone. People aren't going to the first impression there is terrible, right?
Yeah.
Automatically, it doesn't matter how good your content is. The first impression will ruin that person's perception of your brand.
So what's the next step there? Like, how do you build a brand? So you're going from scratch, right?
Okay,
Fucking
yeah.
day one on the internet. Like, how do you get that message across in a perception aspect and from a visual aspect?
Okay, yeah. So first off, you start with the basics, right? So your profile, you need to make sure you have a good profile picture. I do not care how you take it, right? See your phone. Your phone, if you have a phone that is less than 5 years old, the camera on it is amazing. You do not need any big fancy, where is it? Oh, my camera's behind me that way. Don't need any fancy like $3,000 cameras. Okay. You need your phone. You need good lighting. And lighting's simple. You can either have like soft boxes like I have here, or you can just stand in front of a window. Okay. That is all that really matters. As long as your photo is half decent to start, it's a good photo taken by your phone, you'll be good. Your bio, then you go into your bio. Your bio, preferably in your bio, you will tell people two things. There's hundreds of ways to do your bio, but you pretty much say how you help them and social proof for how you've helped them. If you have them two things, you'll be good, okay? Because you're telling someone, you're giving them a reason to follow you by saying, here's how I can help you. So you help them, I don't know, get more sales through teaching them copywriting, whatever it is. And then you prove it by saying, I've sold 20 million through my copy. Okay, so people are going to be like, holy crap. Then once you have your profile nailed, it goes into the content. You have to decide first off how people want to perceive your brand. How do you want people to perceive your brand? Do you want to be the friendly person that never tweets anything controversial and just gives straight up advice and shows no personality? Or do you want to be the person who says what's on their mind, harsh truths, pure value? Like you really have to decide that. Again, it's intangible, but it's what you want to people to perceive. And then pretty much with everything you do, your piece of content, you decide how you want people to perceive your brand. So you could, for example, come up with 3 to 5 characteristics or virtues or traits that you want people to think of when they think of your brand. Okay, so you could
Mm.
come up with something like honest, authentic, valuable, disciplined, hardworking. Okay, they could be your 5 traits. You have them 5 traits of every single piece of content you create. You look at them 5 traits and be like, does this match up with them? Right?
Mm.
Over time, you won't actually need to look at them traits because become you'll be able to do it subconsciously. Basically, you won't even have to curate it. But at the start, I think that's a really important step. Now, for content, you have to decide what you want to create content around.
That
I
was my
do
next
recommend,
question.
yeah, I do recommend that you have content pillars. So, for example, you can have 3 content pillars. These are 3 areas you create content around. So, if you want to, if you're trying to be an online coach, fitness coach, you can create content around, okay, gym, nutrition, recovery. They're your 3 content pillars. But in them 3 content pillars, you can break them down into 100 different subtopics. Okay, because your gym, you can go into training routines, you can go into form, you can go into ways to progressively overload. Nutrition, you can go into different diets, you can go into feeding windows, you can go into macros, calories, micronutrients. Recovery, again, so you can break everything down infinitesimally. Then when you look at them, let's say for each, so you have 3 content pillars, let's say you have 5 subtopics in each of them, you now have 15 topics to create content around.
Mhm.
So you just look at them and you be like, okay, what I'm going to create content around one of these.
Question for you on that.
Go.
So, how do you tie the values back to that? Because I think this is the gap where a lot of people kind of might fall down on. So,
Yeah.
if you've ever seen my content on LinkedIn or maybe even Twitter, which I have 0 following on, to be honest, like I have no problem sharing information from my experiences to help people like build their podcasts or launch like bigger podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I tell you the best way to write fucking hooks, it's hard to get my values through that post. We're bringing back these values. Now, I could say something like, I've spent 3 years writing fucking hooks and I've done a billion of them, and now these are what it is. So maybe that's a
Yeah.
way to do it. But how do you integrate the values into actionable experience and advice for people?
Okay. So here's the thing, too. It's going to be a lot easier to do in longer form content. So longer form content is obviously the likes of YouTube and podcasts and all are obviously longer form content, but also the likes of Instagram carousels and threads. They're not long form, they're like medium form content, but they're longer than a single tweet. It is going to be much easier to display your authenticity, your experiences, your personality, your values in a longer form tweet. Shorter form, it is rather hard and it can be, depending on the tweet, can be really hard to do because, you have like 280 characters to do it in on a tweet. So hard to do. But the way you really do it, I think a lot of it comes down to in short form, the tone of what you're saying. Like if you read my tweets, I'm like no bullshit. I'm just like straight up, here's how you do it. Straight to the point. I'll call you a motherfucker. I'll tell you do this. Like I will like there's no bullshit. And you can get that tone, right? In longer form, that's where you have a bit more play. So if you're writing a hook for a thread, you can obviously, again, a lot of it comes down to tone. So your writing style, how you write. The thing about your writing style too is that will change over time. It will take time for you to find it. So don't expect just to go and write your first piece of content and be like, this is me, this is my voice, this is how I talk. That's not going to happen. It's going to take time. Don't be afraid to experiment with how you present yourself and your ideas and your experiences. But a lot of it is telling people, again, Hormozy talks about this, where it's It's not how to, it's how I.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
how to, not how to, how I. So you can say, so social proof, how I did this. Whatever your social proof is, I read, I sold $1 million in copy. Here's how I did it. That's a really simple basic hook that I wouldn't actually tweet, but the point's there. And then obviously it goes into the tone and your writing style. A lot of it does, I do believe, when the values comes down to writing style. Because like if you can read a tweet by me and you can read a tweet by Dakota. Completely different writing styles in 280 characters, complete getting our different personalities across.
Hmm.
You know,
And
in 280 characters.
what's funny there is the fact that you could look at his tweet or look at yours in isolation and know it's his or hers. That's
Yeah.
his or
Yes.
yours, should I say?
Yeah.
But and again, I think this is where me in particular and many other people fall down is like
Hmm.
how I is really helpful because so how I for you at fucking 200k followers, whatever you have right now, is how I at 200k followers lets people lets people understand your values a little bit easier because you have the authority. You have the big number
Yeah.
theory, right? But at the very beginning, if I was like zero followers, being like, how to how I grow social media followings, that's a bad example, but like how I built my business as zero
Yeah.
followings, right? So I actually find this quite often, like people who like sell companies in silence and they come on and they try to talk about it and they're like, how I sold this company, and they never build the following because no one gives a fuck because they're like small number theory, right?
Yeah.
So how do you provide that value where it's like you're doing you're trying to help
What
people,
the
but
so
then
the
you're
thing
trying to
about
show that too?
yeah, but the thing about social media is too. Here's the thing: they're the only platform that you will grow on by providing straight up value and only value is YouTube. If you go onto Twitter, right, and you start, if you have zero followers, start a brand new account, you could be fucking Elon Musk and giving away the best business secrets for absolute beginners or for people trying to get to their first 100 million or the first billion, right? You can cover all the range, give the most valuable, detailed stuff. If you have zero followers on Twitter, nobody is seeing your content,
Mm,
right? If you're on Instagram and you do the same thing, with Reels, it is slightly different now, but if you're posting a carousel on Instagram, nobody is seeing it. Instagram might show it to 20 people, but if you have zero followers, it's not being shown to anybody. So, social media is also a bit of a game. You have to play the game, you have to play the rules. The way you do that is you pretty much have to start networking with people. Okay, so you have to, like, if you start at zero and you're putting out valuable content. So, use your example. Somebody exits a business for 25 million in silence, right? They start creating content, they write a thread on how they did it. The most valuable thread you've ever read. If they have zero followers, doesn't fucking matter. Okay, nobody's going to see it. If they have 100 followers, doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see it. Okay, 100 people might see it, and if they retweet it, maybe 1,000 people see it. It doesn't matter, right? But if they networked with the likes of someone who has a big audience, me, Danco, Dakota, any of them sort of people, right? And be like, hey, look, love your content. I actually just recently exited my business for 25 million. Would love to shoot the shit, or however they decide to network with that person. All of a sudden, right, I'm now friends with that person. I see they post that thread again in 6 months. I'm going to retweet it. They're all of a sudden, it now has exposure to my audience. So
mm.
a lot of social media, until you build your own audience, is playing a game, which is annoying because people don't want to face that. People want to complain about that and be like, oh, I don't want to have to network and engage and all to grow my following. Unfortunately, on at least on Twitter and Instagram and like LinkedIn, you have to do that. You have to build that network. It is the only way.
Everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah, and
but it's
I think
also like it's also the traditional way before the likes of social
yeah,
media started to interrupt you. But it was like
yeah,
the only way to get clients before there was internet. The only way you get
yeah,
introductions to other people. Like that's it's not the game of social media. It's a game of life in many regards. And
yeah,
I built my podcast to network with people, not necessarily in the online business space, but at the time it was through a career aspect. And the reason why is because I used to be able to get jobs in university when I didn't even have a fucking degree or anything. Was through LinkedIn. I would cold outreach people. They would realize I wasn't an idiot,
yep,
and then they would recommend me to other people. And I was like, "Wait, this internet stuff works." So like, whether you're inside
yep,
the online business space or not, these these things are valuable. But why I think that your model works so well is because the fact that if you are writing consistently and you are posting consistently and creating podcasts and creating all this kind of stuff, that when a Dan Cole does click on your page, he's like, all right, this guy is not full of shit. He's not a
Yeah.
robot, and he's built a business. So I think there's a lot of merit to that. So I built my podcast with no background, like with no
Mm-hmm.
nothing beforehand. You were probably quite similar in some regards. Like, you started
Mm-hmm.
like posting, and I was like, you built a business. The
Yep.
flip side of that is like Justin Waller, a guy who was in the
Yeah.
trenches building a steel fucking company for like 15 years and then came to the internet and was like,
Yep.
this is how much money I make, this is what I can do, and this is how I can help you. So
Yep.
obviously that's some way. So okay. So in some ways that's easier. In some ways that's more difficult. Because in some ways
Yep.
people don't look at him because he was from zero, right? But what did he do? He networked with the big boys. He
Yes.
joined the room,
Exactly.
go on
Yep.
and so forth. So do you think, right, a fucking steel guy hanging steel in fucking Arizona could get on Instagram tomorrow and grow the way he has grown? When I met him in Dubai, he was telling me he has 100 reels going out a week. 100. And
Yep.
with the network effect, that's how it all works, right? Like, that's the
Yep.
fucking game.
Well, this is the thing. It's the same with everything, but like especially social media, right? It's the same. Literally anything. People don't understand how hard. Like as much as we were talking about, this is what hard feels like. People don't understand the amount of time, effort, sacrifice, and how hard it's going to be. Like so, if you take social media, you might come across somebody who blows up in a week, right? It happens, especially on YouTube. It can happen quite frequently. Where you see some guy doing some prank or one of them like gives 100K away to somebody and they blow up overnight, right? But on most platforms, you can look at that there and you see that, so that's your goal, right? But everybody else, 99% of people have been doing it for like 2 3 years at least before they have a decent audience.
Yeah.
So people see the people who blow up, or they even just look at big accounts. They post for a month and maybe they're only posting like 7 reels a week compared to Justin Waller's 100 reels a week. And they're like, why am I not getting the results? Because Justin Waller's been fucking posting on YouTube and Instagram for a couple of years now, I think. And he's been
Yeah.
posting 100 a week. So there's the time and the volume. You're not comparable to them unless you're putting out that same time and volume. And it doesn't matter what your experience, whether you have whether you're Alex Hormozy, $100 million business, right? $250 million now, whatever it is. If he wasn't putting out the same amount of volume every week, he wouldn't have grown the same way he did.
Yeah. And he had, if you ever look at his like content strategy on YouTube, it's like a webinar he did. I think they got up to like, I think it was over like 100 as well, 150 pieces of content or even more a
Yeah.
week. And his is just very systematized. He just writes tweets. If they're good tweets, he'll turn them into like a reel. If they're good reels, he turn them into a YouTube video. And it's so funny because like I think obviously I remember I saw your post the other day that you went very deep on Twitter and you got to 40K before you even thought of another platform.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
people are always thinking about like, oh, like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. But I think it's like when you do go deep on one thing, like one business idea, you need to
Yep.
master that. And I want to get your thoughts on this actually. So one of my biggest pet peeves in the world is niche hopping, right? So like obviously I've tried different shit, right? Whatever. But
Mhm.
fundamentally I've done the podcast stuff for 3 years. Right?
Yeah.
This is it. Every single day, no matter what. I've tried other stuff, whatever. But everything goes back to this core principle. So when people like message me on like Q&As, they're like, oh, like, like what else do you do? What else do you do? And I'm like, it's
Nothing.
this. I literally I just do this
Yeah.
24/7 and I go to the gym 24/7, right? So because of that, that's why it worked. But then when I look at other people and they get like a tiny bit of success and they try to diversify or they want to go off and do something else, they end up doing nothing. So I want to kind
Yep.
of get your thoughts on that kind of principle of like niche hopping and like when do you actually decide to go do something else?
Mate, this is the thing. Focus is focus in every context you can think of, right? Take it down to the micro. I'm writing tweets. I'm writing a newsletter, whatever the fuck I'm doing. If I am trying to write my newsletter, but also like posting an Instagram story at the same time on my phone, my focus is split, my efforts are diverged, and therefore the results I'm going to get from both, because the quality is going to be massively down. You can then take that up to, let's say, social media. You're trying to grow on Twitter, but you're also trying to grow on Instagram. So your focus is split. completely. So your efforts are halved. You're going to get way less results. So focus is focus in every context. You have to just choose something and fucking stick with it and just go in for, like, this is the thing. You have to do something for such a insane amount of time that it seems crazy. You really do. Like, if you told, especially back home in Ireland with the small town mentality most people have, you told somebody that you're sitting recording podcasts every week for 3 years, they'd think you're fucking crazy.
Man,
You
literally fucking insane.
mate, so focus is focus in everything. Now, there can be caveats to this, right? I think if you are changing what you're doing, it has to be a very thought out decision. You can't
Mm,
change what you're doing because your biggest YouTube guru is telling you you're going to make 100K a month in 20 minutes a day doing this. Okay, get you can't also change what you're doing because you're not getting results. Well, so you have to change what you're doing, but I wouldn't change the craft that you're doing if you're not getting results. If you're not getting results, you clearly have to change some of the tactics or strategies you're doing. But if you're going to change what you're doing, like the craft, the bigger picture thing that you're doing, it has to be a thought out decision in that you don't enjoy it. I think that is the only reason to change what you're doing. So if you're trying to build X business and you're no longer enjoying it, I think that's fine to change to Y. Okay. But if you're trying to build X business and you're just not getting results, I don't think that's a good reason to change to Y. I think you have to change what you're doing with X.
to go deeper on that, why is it you? Why is it someone wouldn't like something? Is it because they don't like the work? Is it because they have screwed themselves? Because there's usually a solution to every problem, right? So, like, let's say
Yeah.
you have an agency that's doing 50K a month, high pressure, stress operations. That is miserable. However, you can start to hire and start to replace people in that role and then do something else
Yeah.
and do the stuff that you enjoy. So you like writing content. Okay, let's bring in all the leads and bring it to 100K a month. So, like, do people like shit their pants, lose their mind, and then just try move?
Well, see,
Like,
I
cause like,
don't
'cause
think,
what is you don't like, you know?
yeah. Well, I think that's a good point. You have to figure out why you don't like it. Okay. But I do think, like, if someone, I think most people quit before they even get some level of success. They
Mm,
decide to change before, like, very rarely do you see somebody get to a certain level of success and be like, okay, I'm going to try something completely different. They normally do, like what you said, they'll hire, they'll outsource, they'll remove themselves from the role. Or if they do change, it's because they just wanted to change. That's fine. But I think they've already gotten a level of success with that. Okay. So they've learned all these skills that they can transfer over into this new thing. But I think most people just quit because, they don't understand how hard it is. I do think a lot of it comes down to that. I think a
mm,
lot of people I think it's instant gratification. The modern world is fucking conditioned everybody for instant gratification. You order Uber Eats and you get food in 20 minutes. You can order on Amazon and get next day delivery. You
mhm.
scroll social media and you get instant dopamine. So I think everybody is so conditioned for instant gratification that when they try something, even if they try it for a month and they haven't got results, they really just get disheartened and maybe convince themselves that they don't like it. So yeah, that's a good point. I would say you have a good point there. It's like you have to find out why you don't like it. And if you can
Mhm.
fix that, if you don't like it because you're not getting results, then obviously change what you're doing in that business model or whatever. But if it's something to do with the actual work, the craft, let's say you do copywriting and you don't enjoy writing, copywriting's not going to be the thing for you. You need to change
Mhm.
that. Because realistically, I don't think you're going to learn to enjoy writing. You probably could, but it'd be hard. For me, for example, right? I'm incredibly introverted. I do not like doing sales calls. I do not like. It's very hard to get me in a call. See if you get me in a call. Well done. So you've got me in a podcast. So you've done good. Trying to get me on a call is horrendous. Which is part of the reason I ran a Facebook ads agency for like 6-9 months. I hated it. Right, mainly because I always had to do calls with contractors, with like sales calls, whether it was like monthly update calls, whatever it was. I hated doing calls, hated it with a passion. So it wasn't for me. Anything where I have to do loads of talking to people, not for me. So now I can sit there and I can create content. I can take 2 or 3 calls a week with people I enjoy talking to, right? and that's fine. So it's like changing. I think you can probably. I think it comes down to why you chose that business model in the first place, or whatever you're doing. Like if you choose something, there's likely a reason you chose it. That reason might be money, might not be, might be because you thought you'd be interested in it. But there's probably things in whatever you've chosen that you do enjoy.
Hmm.
And you can look at them and be like, okay, I enjoy this part, but I don't enjoy this part. So you could then maybe try to find some business model, which is the in between, where it's like it has all the parts you like, but doesn't have the parts you dislike. Now, when you try that business model too, there might be parts that you don't like as well. But I think it's an iterative process if you genuinely don't like what you're doing.
And again, you can always find ways to fill those gaps. So, for instance, I hate following up on invoices. Just fucking hate it. And I actually always talk about it to people too. I'm like, I don't understand why people don't pay people. I was like, I would never
Yeah.
ever not pay someone, and I just like,
Yeah.
I just don't like it. And then like at the end, I like, what is it, 20th? Every once in a while, I have to go back and just see like what was paid, what wasn't paid. And then I was speaking to someone
Yeah.
recently, and they were like, why don't you just bring in someone to either automate it or to do that work? And I was like, that's really smart,
Yeah.
and it takes me completely out of the stuff I don't like doing. But I do like the calls. I do like the team building. I actually do
Yeah.
like that process of putting people together. So it's leaning into where you actually fucking what you actually enjoy. I wanted to ask you on the different aspects of like psychology and writing. So I had Dakota on my podcast, and like he really blew my mind with this stuff, and that's when I went really deep down the rabbit
Yeah.
hole of that and how to kind of help see people through their like problems and work through their different aspects. From your perspective, when you're writing content, what do you what's important to you about like psychology of what people are trying to consume, especially who you're trying to sell to? Because I guess at that stage that has to come.
Yeah, I always like to think of it as like marketing awareness levels. And I look at this from a more, this is more broad in the content strategy than individual content pieces. So like you have short form content, right? That's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. That short form content I view as like marketing awareness level one, where I'm trying to make people aware of a problem they have. Because there's only so much you can get across in 280 characters, right?
Yeah.
And you can't provide a life-changing amount of value in that, but you can make people aware of a problem they have. And if you make them aware of that problem, you can then bring them into marketing awareness level 2, which is in the way I view it is threads and carousels, so more medium form content. And when you bring them that there, you can then send them to your newsletter, which again is even more detail, which is even more value, which then brings them down the marketing awareness level again. And then you sell to them in the marketing awareness, in the newsletter, where you can, in a newsletter, because you can go as long as you want, you can really bring people through the marketing awareness levels. So, like, you can, at the very start of the newsletter, you can talk about something that makes them aware of X problem that they have. That problem, if you're looking to sell to them in the newsletter, should be solved by the product that you're selling to them, so that by the time they get to the end of the newsletter, you've made them aware of their problem, you've made them aware that they can solve it, you've showed them how to solve it, but you've not given them the what. Like, you showed them, you've told them they can solve it, how to solve it, but your product then, which you pitch them at the end, is the exact step by step, the what,
The how to or the
the how
done for you
to.
model.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking hell, man. That's really good because I guess some people try to shove it all in one go and they kind of miss the model
Yeah.
or just completely miss it completely, like not understanding. I think it goes deeper than like users' problems. So we can take it back to my example. A lot of podcasts can't grow. Like it's just like it's multifactorial. There's a lot of reasons why.
Yep.
If I just tell you like you should grow, you should grow, you should grow, it doesn't really do anything. But if I try to understand like the pain that's felt as
Yeah.
that, which is like embarrassment, authority, the loss of fucking money, the loss of
Yep.
time, and the opportunity cost, right? Because you could be just fucking selling ass and it'd be grand, right? So there's like that element which I think a lot of people get wrong though, is the fact that they're just like too focused on like the product and not actually trying to like actually help people, which is like the whole point of this, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, completely. I think, see, I do think everything comes down to how you want to sell,
Yeah.
because I am not a hard seller. I don't do hard sells. Like, I don't personally like it. I don't like someone like shoving something in my face. So I don't like doing it to people. It's also not the image I want to my brand. So when I am trying to sell something to someone, the way I always think about it is I am trying to help them with a problem, because realistically, if you're selling anything, that is what you're doing, right? You're trying to help someone with a problem by offering your solution. But most people, if you're trying to hard sell them, you mightn't necessarily care about them. Whereas I think if you do more like soft sells, like I do, you care about them. Therefore, you're willing to actually take the time and go through the pain points and give the counter arguments, go through the pain points. Again, there's salesy ways of doing it. There's non-salesy ways of going through the pain points. I don't like anything salesy. So you can bring up the pain points, give them a solution to the pain points. And I think one of the keys, at least I like to do, is always provide them value. So like if someone's reading my newsletter and I'm pitching a product at the end, I will still make sure that even if they don't buy my product, they'll have still got something from the newsletter, some sort of value, that some sort of actionable advice, that if they have a certain pain point, maybe there's a certain way I've given them one way to solve that certain pain point or whatever it is. But I do think, yeah, I think it comes down to how you want to sell, really, with the pain
You're
points.
dead right. I just saw Alex Hormozzi's latest video for 100 million leads, and he just did like a 12-minute like video, and he said something really good. He was like, the idea isn't to like sell to everybody, because you know not everyone's gonna buy, right? If you have 100 people, like one person might buy, but if you help 100 people, so through your newsletter
Yeah,
you help 100 people, those people become advocates then, and then they'll tell their friends and be like, oh yeah, this guy
yes,
Ross is like actually like genuine, and then that person then who is nowhere near your sphere will actually then start to
yeah,
engage and then could actually be the person who buys, instead of like saying like, oh, you know the guy Ross, like this was an example, he was like, oh, like that guy Ross would be like, yeah, he's like, he shit product, all fluff, don't reach out to him,
yeah,
because you were just trying to either hard sell or you have a shitty product, right? So
yeah,
nailing that product, nailing that service, and then just doing like loads of free shit, so like I've actually been looking at like just different ways, right? And he like, because everything goes back to the same shit, right? Like you're helping people do self mastery, but it's true. Threads, carousels, reels, TikTok videos, long form podcasts. But
yeah,
there's even more ways you could add on that you may not want to might not want to do, like masterclasses, webinars, and all this.
yeah,
But it all fundamentally goes back to that same principle. So, like, we're going to record for an hour and a half. When people listen to this podcast, the worst thing that could happen is that they could leave and be like, "Fuck those guys." And that's like
yeah.
the last thing I ever want happening. So that's always my promise, right? People listening, is that you're not going to leave with that with that thought process.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I do think a lot of everything, especially in social media, just comes down to wanting to help people and selling to, like, it's just, it comes down to, do you want to help people or do you want to make money? Like, and obviously, when I say it like that, there, I don't mean there's anything wrong with making money. Everyone wants to make money, make more money. But I feel like if you sacrifice helping people or doing it in an ethical way, maybe to make more money, I think that's when you fuck up. And I think I like to think of, there's two types of creators, or two types of people in social media. There's the business first creator, which is somebody who creates content specifically to get leads for their business. And then there's the creator first business, which is what I would consider myself more of, where it's I create content because I enjoy creating content, but then I also angle it in a way to get leads. So I think when you like, I think the problem with the business first creators is all they're thinking about is leads. So they're not really providing the value, or at least as much value or real value. And the purpose of everything is trying to sell. Like, that's the thing too. You shouldn't be trying to sell in every post. You shouldn't be trying to sell in everything. I only really sell in one place, and that's on my newsletter. I have links on websites and I put the odd thing up in like an Instagram story, but mainly the only place I sell is on my newsletter. And that's simply because I am trying to create content first and the business is second. So I can just put out so much free value everywhere. And then if you want to sell, or sorry, if you want to buy from me, I do make it clear to everybody where you can buy from me. So if somebody wants to
Yeah.
buy, they know where to go and they're going to buy it because I provided them so much free value.
And that's a difference between sharing those values that you went back to, the five core values.
Hmm.
Because if you're a business first individual, you're just like, oh yeah, like, this is my fucking email marketing, fucking whatever it is, and then
Yeah,
as a result, you don't have any, you don't, you already have zero values, right?
yeah,
You're just a fucking cell at the end of the day because you're not trying to help anybody. You're not like showing what you're actually about because that
yeah,
doesn't come into your perspective, and that's why it's quite ironic because my podcast, like I don't like yeah, like I have like a random like courses and stuff, but I'm not trying to sell people into that through my podcast. It's basically
yeah,
to help younger people. It's to help myself as well, and to just learn and just to learn, right? So all like even my YouTube videos, my Instagram, it's all just to help people. I don't actually like I'm not like selling a fucking podcast.
yeah,
I don't know, like life fucking coach through it. You know, it's just that's what it's about, and that's to some regards where it works, right? Because people just like, oh, this guy, I can listen, I can learn. The guests are high caliber, and that's all that
yeah.
matters.
Well, it also gives them time to build trust and authority with you, or build trust with you and understand you as an authority. Because realistically, that's what it comes down to. The people who buy from you need to first off understand that you're an authority who can actually help them solve their problem, and secondly, trust that you're going to do it. You're not going to rip them off, and basically believe everything you say. And if you're a business first creator and you're just always trying to make the sale, people aren't going to be consuming your content. So you will
Mm,
likely in the short run, you will make more money being the business first creator, right? But eventually you're going to run out of people because you're not building a true audience. You're not building true fans who are going to
mm,
follow you and support you. Whereas if you are the creator first business, you're putting out value for years. And somebody who followed you from day one might buy from you in 2 years. It might have just taken
yeah.
them that amount of time. So I
Man,
think in the long run, that is the way.
so my one of my mates who's like runs a huge company, huge company, said this to me last year. He was saying that like a conversation today with someone is money 2 years from now. So like
Yeah.
everyone's like
Love
fucking
that.
hung up about trying to make sales, all this shit. He was like, no, no, no. Like you just met them, whatever. 2 years from now is when it comes it'll come back to you, you know? So you're
Yeah.
playing long game. And like
Yeah.
that's the difference between getting into this for like a day or getting to this like properly. So like when I started my podcast, it was like, right, I am doing this indefinitely and I will keep on going. And like the best way to look at this is like so like your account is like huge, you've done really well, of course. If you were to look at the likes of Dan Cole, Mike Thurston, Rob, a few other people. They've been at this for 5 to 10 years. You look through their Instagram or their YouTube, they're not selling anything. Like they have affiliate links at the bottom. Like they're just genuinely because I work
Yeah.
very closely with Rob. If you look at Rob's content, like he's like, yeah, like this is exactly how I get shredded. You probably want to get shredded too.
Mate,
Here's exactly how it works.
there's there's a quote and I can't remember who said it. People love buying things, but they hate being sold to.
Mm,
Right? I cannot remember. So it's like if you are trying to really hard sell everybody in every Instagram post and every YouTube video, people are like, fuck that. I don't want to buy from him. Well, obviously, it's a numbers game. So some people obviously will buy from you. But when you just have links to stuff in the description or you do soft sells or however you do it, people who want to buy from you will buy from you. They will find a way to buy. Okay.
mm,
All you have to do is make them aware that there is a place to buy from you. And
mm,
obviously, look, there's times where you can mix up. Like if you're launching a new product or a new service or something, you can do more hard selling. But for a short period of time, there's obviously phases that you can go through. But I just subscribe to the fact that people don't like being sold to, but they love buying shit.
mm.
So if they want to buy, they will find out how.
100%, man. Before we finish up, I want to ask you like what your plan is for the future now.
Short term.
Yeah, short term. Like, how do you plan
Yeah.
to build up the next end of
Yes.
2023?
YouTube's the next one. I've been creating videos on YouTube for probably like a year and a half, 2 years now. But like it's never been my primary focus, and I feel like on YouTube, if you want to grow on there, it needs to be your primary focus because there's so much that goes into it. There's so many different skills. Like if I'm growing on Twitter, it's just all I have to do is write. This one skill is writing basically. Whereas in YouTube, there's writing, there's speaking, there's the videography, there's the editing. There's so many skills. So I feel like it requires so much time and effort. So since I've grown on Twitter. I hit 100K on Twitter there like yesterday, and I'm like
I saw,
free.
man. It's
Yeah, and then I
amazing.
had like I'm like 300 something thousand on Instagram. So
Fuck.
I've got an audience on both of them. So YouTube's the next platform, because realistically that's where I go back to, is YouTube,
Yeah.
creating YouTube videos from I was like 12. I love doing it. I'm also really big into like videography and photography, mainly photography, but I do like a bit of videography. So I enjoy the process of making the YouTube videos. I've just not had it's not been a big enough priority for me while I was growing the other platforms in the business. So now that I've got
Mhm.
them at like a level I'm happy with, I think I'll go hard in the YouTube.
That's sick, man. I think you can just focus on like your biggest tweets and your biggest posts for
Yeah.
the first while, and
Yeah.
see how it grows from there. Because like I completely understand the feeling like there's so much that goes into it, but at the same time, you could try to like systematize it. So like
Yeah.
camera set up one place every single time, you know, you drop it straight from Google Drive that goes to your editor or whatever.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like we try to make things
Yeah.
as streamlined as possible,
Yeah.
and like that's like a big reason of how like we've been able to kind of grow my own agency is because we just need to take something that's very complicated, which is video and nuanced, and then tie it all together. And like the content
Yeah.
strategy, then I think you just get better at it, you know. So like for instance, like when I
Yes.
record some videos, like I used to take fucking ages, but then it's just practice with everything, you know. But you'll crack it, man. But there's different ways to crack YouTube now than there was before. Like obviously shorts
Yeah.
and stuff, you can rip YouTube open with it. Like a lot of my clients as well, in particular, like even the really small accounts, the ones that haven't blown up, we get most discovery through shorts, and then the
Shorts.
attrition is so positive as well.
I'm writing that
So like
down.
because like they're like I don't know who said this, probably someone much smarter than me, but there's like short form brain, so like people's brains are just in short form, but they do build subscribers. So that CTA that's on a video is like so valuable. Like it's like people
Yes.
don't realize, like, from a product perspective, like it's a fact that it's next to the like button. Just
Yeah.
small nuances like this. So you can grow way faster on YouTube because of that. And then if the video aligns to the shorts, it's perfectly fine. Now what I do is I just pull the video from the shorts. So like I can do 20 clips a video if I really wanted
Yes.
to, and then that attrition does come completely across because it's like, oh, I
Yes.
want to just explore more, but you'll explore in a different avenue. It's like out of short form brain into long form brain or into like medium form, whatever fuck you want to call it.
Yeah.
So there's just
It's
different.
good.
The game just changes really rapidly, which is why
Yeah,
like
it
you have to play the
does.
game, right? But
And
there is just new ways to crack the game for sure.
yeah, and I feel like that's actually one of the, I think, not problems. Problems the wrong word, but I'm going to use problem. One of the problems of YouTube for me has been that there's so many different ways you can do it. Like you could look at Hamza, who blew up just by speaking to a bloody camera. Or you could look at Peter McKinnon, who makes these pieces of art every video, or you could look at Mr. Beast, who spends $1 million on a video. There's so many different ways, which in a way is really good, but in a way it's really easy to like be caught by analysis paralysis.
Hundred
Because
percent,
like
and like
which do I do, which do I stick to?
and how long and all these different
Yeah, yeah,
multi-factor
exactly.
variables. I think you guys do one thing really really
And
well
just
because
stick to it.
I've had that idea for so long. It's like longer videos obviously get less engagement, which is why podcasts get less views than like a fucking TikTok
Yeah,
video. But at an abstract level, when you get really good at producing long form episodes, it builds that. It makes it much easier as a result, And like
yeah,
I think with YouTube, like it's not about like how much money you put into it. It's just about, well, obviously if it's Mr. Beast, a bit different. But I mean, like if it does cost you a good bit to run a YouTube channel, I think it's like so worth it in the long run. Because like
yeah,
I,
I agree.
I I might make a video on this, like, but one of my like shorts has like 15 like million views or some shit, right?
Class.
And I made like 500 quid from it on the revenue.
Uh,
However, to produce that one video cost me $5,000. Cost me a
yeah,
flight to Dubai. It cost me a week in Dubai. It cost me all the studios in Dubai. It cost me my
yeah,
full entire team running analysis on a lot of stuff, improving the quality, reviewing it, releasing it, all this kind of stuff. So, but the ROI is completely different. So it's like, again, when you're playing long game, a lot of these variables change over time,
yeah.
and the goal changes.
I got you, man.
So I want to say a massive thank you, man. I really, really appreciate this. Fucking, I knew it was going to be a great session. I must say that, but I want to say a massive thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
Yeah, mate. Thank you for having me on. I am honored, and I really enjoyed the conversation.